This is the Aftermarket Radio Network. Hey, Carm Capriato here, the Automotive Aftermarket Podcast guy, and welcome to Remarkable Results Radio, recorded live at the ATI 2021 Super Conference. Hey, do you remember when you started your business with your wife or friend as your partner? The upside was blue skies and the horizon was never ending. You know, no one plans for partnerships to crumble or marriages end or an unforeseen death to occur. But what happens when it does? Do you have legal documents in place? No matter what stage you are in owning a business, it is a necessity to plan for the unexpected now rather than later when emotions and tensions are high. In this episode, Charlene Parlett shares her personal experience with business and marriage so others can avoid the same path. Hey, thanks to our great sponsors, Apex and Shopware. You know, imagine being able to see new product, tools, and equipment demos in a simulated real-world shop environment, complete with 8 service bays, lifts, vehicles, and a service counter area. Well, it's called Joe's Garage, and it's set to launch at Apex 2021, November 2nd through the 4th in Las Vegas. I hope to see you there. Visit aapexshow.com for details. Hey, let's face it, technicians are your inventory of time, and it's the only inventory that expires every minute of every day. Maximize sales and speed to get the cars moving through your business faster. It's all about Shopware. Learn more at getshopware.com. Author Dan Sullivan said, "We're taught that getting help from others is cheating and something we absolutely shouldn't do." Now, we've come to realize that that statement is so untrue. So let the podcast help you with a new and brilliant idea so you can move forward. Hey, a warm welcome to Coach Charlene Parlett. Hi, Charlene. How are you?
Hi, Carm. It's great to be here today.
I'm so glad you are. We're at the ATI Super Conference 2021.
Yes. Yay. Live and in person. We can spit in each other's faces again. Yay.
Yeah, I did a show. I did a live town hall from here. And I mentioned that it's been 14 months since I've been anywhere. And I had to remember how to pack.
Right.
Not only my studio, but clothes. Oh, that's right. I need socks. You know, it was one of those things that who would have, been, if you will, into travel dry dock
exactly
for that long. But, and as I said, it's amazing. And I was talking to so many of the vendors that are here that this is probably the launch, the first ever face to face in the now. Some other events have gone on, but this is a national in scope.
Yes, absolutely. And to my knowledge, for a lot of our vendors, definitely for a lot of our members, this is their first time out since March 2020. Yeah,
I hear you. Well, look at, I'm going to do a lot of interviews here. Got a lot of great topics. It's going to be just so great for the podcast audience. And if you hear silverware jingling in the background, we're near the kitchen.
Right.
You get what you can take.
That's right.
There it is. I've never done a show about divorce. Part of what I know you want to talk about, you've been a coach for 6 years.
Correct.
And you were an ATI client. And then you said, hey, I think I want to do this coaching thing. And the reason you decided to do that?
Really, the reason I decided to do that was because of the incredible experience I had as a member. I was a member with ATI to the point where we were alumni. And what that means is after you finish your initial contract obligation, you still want to take advantage of that opportunity. So that's what we mean when we say you're an alumni member, is you've decided to continue on with your coaching experience. And I was that person. And I was doing everything my coach was telling me to do, to the point where I was no longer needed on a daily basis at the shop. I had already delegated and hired to replace myself. So I'm sitting at home twiddling my thumbs going, gee, what do I want to do with myself? Because I don't have to be there every day. And the thing that kept coming back to me over and over was, gee, I'd really like to help other business owners in the same way that ATI had helped me. And that's how my journey started on becoming certified as an executive. I'm certified as an executive coach, life coach. Confidence coach is actually a little bit of a different specialty, but that's how I ended up on that path. And ultimately, I was given the opportunity to put myself in front of ATI as a potential coach, and here I am today.
I'm curious, did you have to get any special training to do those different levels?
Oh, absolutely. Anything that you want to do with excellence, you have got to get specialized training, and that's what I actually tell my members. A lot of our new shops, they started their business because they were fantastic technicians. And on day one, I'll tell them, listen, all the schooling, all the training, all the years of hands-on experience is what made you an amazing tech, right? Right. Okay. So when you started your shop, you started with a business management degree, right? No.
Never.
Marketing degree?
Nope.
Are you an accountant?
Mm-mm.
Oh, so you started your shop with very limited understanding of the skill set you need as an owner, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's why you're here. Because if you'll put as much passion into becoming an amazing owner as you did to becoming an amazing technician, you will have that rock star shop. You will have that dream that you started when you opened the doors.
Well, that analogy. Remember that, everyone. If you put as much effort into being a technician as you put into you should be putting into an owner,
yes,
you'll be a rock star. So, okay, this episode we really want to focus on divorce. I know it's a real part of the world. I have no experience with this at all, so I'm going to really rely on you. So, the big takeaway from the divorce experience was, for you, why you need to see your business as a business from day one. That's very profound.
Correct. So, and this is not a unusual circumstance. A lot of small businesses are owned by a husband-wife team.
Yep.
And they start it from scratch. And we often will call our business our baby.
Yeah.
And that's really part of where the problem is. Because if you see it as a baby and you have an emotional attachment to it, then once something outside of the business goes sideways, such as divorce, it becomes a very difficult circumstance.
Yeah.
So for my situation, my spouse was that amazing technician that I just mentioned. And I came into starting the business with the operational experience. I had experience in accounting. I had experience as a marketing director for a small business. When we opened the doors, I took on a lot of what we now would say was the ownership side of it.
And you were married at the time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So one of the things that you learn as a member of ATI, of course, is much more in depth. What does that role look like? What are the responsibilities? What are the things you really need to make sure are getting done? And for my spouse, they did not want to take on that aspect of ownership. So very consciously, we had the conversation and I said, fine, I will take on the role of owner and I will do the things that are the responsibility of the owner. It
makes all kinds of sense. I mean, he wanted to continue to tech. And you were the integrator for the business.
Correct.
All right.
Correct. In a lot of circumstances, that works great. It works fantastically because you each have very clearly defined roles. But if you have an emotional attachment to that business, now outside of the business, the relationship is no longer working, has broken down. Now you have to figure out, can you continue to be partners in the business when you're not life partners anymore?
I see. What you're saying is the relationship broke down, but he looked at this thing as my baby, and you can't have my baby.
Correct. Right. So there now was a power struggle that really shouldn't have been there. And I held out hope. I really believed that we could continue to have a thriving business together. And it just became very clear that that really wasn't going to work. We were going to need to have a full separation. And I chose to be the one to say, fine, I will sell my share to you. So this is where you really get to the point where you realize a business is a business. It is not a child. It is not a pet. It's not something that you can be emotionally wrapped up in.
So because you said, I'll sell my shares to you, you didn't look at it as the baby and you realized he was. So you say, hey, okay, we got to figure out how to get over this hurdle. And so you were did you procrastinate? Was this a quick decision to do this, or did you ponder it for a while?
I did ponder it for a while. I would say we stayed business partners for over a year after the divorce.
Oh, okay, so you got divorced, and if you stayed business partners, that means you had to have a share. And was it worked out in the divorce that over time he was going to buy you out?
Actually, we did not. We did not include the business in the divorce because we both at that moment believed we could continue to be business partners.
Okay, was that wise?
It probably was a good decision because, of course, in the midst of a divorce, there's a lot of emotion going on.
Yeah.
And the fact that even if it was wrong for us to believe we could stay business partners, it meant the business got put over here in a safe place. It was not part of the divorce stuff. So maybe that was actually a good decision. Unfortunately, when we could not continue to work together, there was too much of that push and pull. One of us was very emotionally attached to the business. And that's where...
And who was that?
That was my spouse.
Okay.
But that's also why today, and I've told people this before, I mentioned it to you, if someone can learn from my experience and not have this circumstance, then it's worth sharing it.
You said he was emotionally attached. You were partners. You weren't emotionally attached? You look at this as a different kind of entity than a baby?
I looked at it as
a business.
This is a legal entity that makes me money, that employs people in my community. Yeah. It gives me a voice in the community because being a business owner gave me opportunities to be on the chamber board of directors and to be involved in our local government. And I am very aware that it was because I owned a business that doors were open to me for those opportunities. But that's how I looked at it.
Did you both start the business together?
Yes.
Okay. So, all right. But he had a closer emotional attachment because he's always wanted to do this. He's always wanted to be a technician, fix people's cars, make them happy.
And I had already moved on to my career doing business coaching at that point. You know, I had already extricated myself out of the daily operation.
I see.
And I don't know if part of the challenge was the fact that we're no longer life partners. She's no longer physically at the facility on a daily basis. So, you know, it was very clear that I don't have the attachment. I still have the responsibilities of ownership, but I did not have the attachment anymore.
So happily married partners in a business probably don't have or needed to have some legal kind of operating documents or principles.
I think everyone who's in any kind of business partnership needs to have legal documents. So here's why I feel that way. There's a multitude of reasons why one partner may at some point want or need to get out of the business. They may have a family member living on the other side of the country that needs care, and they want to be able to take their proceeds, step away, and take care of that family member. I've seen it happen. You may have a circumstance where one of the partners passes away, and you may or may not want the spouse of that person to now be your business partner.
And an operating agreement would allow for key person insurance to fund that.
Exactly. So what I learned through this circumstance and from speaking, I ended up needing a business lawyer to resolve this because we could not come to agreement together outside of bringing in lawyers. What I learned from that circumstance, one of the very first questions that my lawyer asked is, what does your operating agreement say about sale and ownership of the partnership.
But that was a whoops because you didn't have it, right?
I had a very minimal operating agreement that you can get online from like a company like LegalZoom.
Okay.
And those kind of questions weren't part of setting it up.
And if you signed it and you looked at it and you said, well, that looks cool.
Right.
And you didn't really.
Because you don't know what you don't know.
It's always the circumstance.
Right.
Lawyers sit down with you and say, okay, and tell me what you want this to say. What do you, and he says,
exactly.
What if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? And then you say, oh, I never thought of that.
So the questions that were brought up were, what's in your agreement? What have you agreed as the valuation process? What methodology? And I'm like, I don't even know what you mean by that.
Yeah.
Well, there's multiple methodologies for valuing a business. But if you don't have it in writing, now you can have two different partners disagreeing on how will you value the business. Mm-hmm. Will automatically one partner have first right of refusal or not? Yep. Will the other partner be allowed to own or finance the share or not? Most of us, I believe this is true for most small businesses across the board, not just auto repair. Most of us, if we have any operating agreement, it's minimal at best. Yeah. Because when you open your business, you're on your honeymoon. Everything's beautiful. This is your dream. You've dreamed for years that I'm going to be my own boss. And it normally takes anywhere between 3 months and a year for you to realize the honeymoon's over. It's not nearly as bright and shiny as day one when you didn't know what you didn't know. Yeah. Now you're starting to feel it.
Hey, Carm here, and coming up, Charlene explains how to approach a partner or spouse if you want to draw up legal documents for the business. Hey, did you know that Apex 2021 is designating a new area called Repair Shop HQ with you in mind? That's right. This one-stop destination is being designed to meet the product, equipment, and training needs of today's shop owners, managers, and technicians. As part of this edition, Joe's Garage, a simulated real-world shop environment with 8 bays, lifts, vehicles, and a service counter area will feature the latest product and equipment demos. A new dedicated tire section, 3 training theaters, and a diagnostics and telematics area also will be part of Repair Shop HQ. And there's still more. The popular tool and equipment section and the mobile heat transfer heating air conditioning section will relocate to this new area. This immersive environment located on level 1 of the Sands Expo will be ready and waiting for you November 2nd through the 4th in Las Vegas. Now, I hope to see you there. Visit aapexshow.com for details. I want to let you in on a little secret. Investing in a cloud-based shop management system could be the smartest purchase you make in 2021. Manual processes can really add up and cost your shop unnecessary time and money. Now, if you're writing out repair orders, you're wasting time. If you're chasing customers for approvals, you're wasting time. If you're manually calculating invoices or logging into multiple systems, you're wasting time. And if you're wasting time, well, then you're wasting money. Do me a favor, pull up Chrome, Safari, or whatever browser you use and type in getshopware.com. Click on the Book a Demo button in the upper right corner and check out Shopware's amazingly efficient software. Trust me, you won't regret it. Again, that's getshopware.com. Charlene, I can't imagine the number of husbands and wives and spouses and partners that are in business together, 50-50 equal, that will listen to this and said, we're 20 years, 25 years in, we don't need this.
Right.
And is that a true statement to you?
It's really not, because one of the things I just brought up was death of one of the partners. It's likely possible that it's going to happen.
And people don't think about it because you're my spouse. The business comes back to me.
I don't want, for the same reason that people will hesitate buying life insurance, I don't want to think about the last day of my ownership in this business, regardless of why. But that's also why, for clients at ATI, we have an entire curriculum on succession planning.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Specifically because over the past 20 plus years, we have walked so many members through those kinds of situations.
And I'll bet you that anybody who is talking to their coach about divorce, they probably say, you need to talk to Charlene.
I have a reputation. It's not a bad reputation, but I do. And again, if anything in my life history and my experience will help someone else, I bring it to the table. And sometimes it's as simple as saying, when was the last time the two of you went on a date? Didn't talk about the shop. Yeah. Period. You went on a date.
I'm thinking about this agreement for strongly married couples. And I'm thinking now about that key person insurance. I think years ago when I was in business, we called it Keyman.
Right.
That's what it was called. And I'm sure that the proper way is to say key person. But I was thinking about the fact that because you're the spouse, the partner, and if, say, for example, you are leading a very significant part of the business,
right,
to be able to get enough money to come in upon the death of a partner, it would help you fund a transition.
Correct.
For that individual to then have to pay that person. That person was taking a salary anyway. And I think it's really smart. Now, the divorce piece is about, insurance, put insurance on this side of the table, but the agreement that says, just in case we fall out of a love.
Exactly.
We don't want to argue over who gets the kids.
Right.
We don't want to argue about how the business valuation and split works.
Right.
And would you ever say, I'm going to sign this agreement, but I don't want the business? Say I was one of the partners and says, I really don't want the business. So I'm ready to come up with a formula.
Right.
Say it's 10 years, 15 years from now, of what the valuation of the business would be. Now, that's smart.
Well, it absolutely is. And if you are dealing with true entrepreneurs, that's exactly what they do. Yeah. If they are looking at this as an investment, their goal is to maximize profits over the course of the next 10 years and have in place a plan to exit. Why would we do it any differently just because we're the founders? But we do, but because we don't think in those terms. We think in terms of, I created this and it's special. Yes, it is. It's special because I want lots of zeros behind the number at the front when I go to sell it. Yeah. That's where it's supposed to be special. It's supposed to be something that provides you with a very comfortable lifestyle. You did the things that very few people will do. You started a business. You took on the responsibility of ownership. Your reward for that should be that at some point at your choosing, you get the rewards of that, both through cash flow while you own it and big, massive check when you sell it.
Got it. Okay. Let's do a scenario. There's an individual listening right now who's the spouse in a married couple relationship. Doesn't matter who, what, when, where, or how. And they're listening and they're saying, okay, wow, Charlene's making a lot of sense. Thank God I bumped into this show. How do I approach my significant other to have this conversation?
Right. So, two important elements. The first one's actually easier. You brought up Keyman Insurance. Incredibly important. And I don't care what your age is. If you are involved in the business at any level, the business needs Keyman Insurance. Yeah. I would even say if you are a stay-at-home spouse, but you are fully
you're vested.
You're fully vested in the success of the business. You should have Keyman Insurance on yourself. So I was 14 when my mom passed away. She was 39 years old, stay-at-home mom. And I very clearly remember even laying in bed in the guest room of my aunt's house, hearing my dad cry because he had to ask them for money to borrow to bury my mom because he didn't have life insurance on her. She was a stay-at-home mom. And we were taught that you only need life insurance if you're the breadwinner.
Mm-hmm.
So the easier part of this conversation is that one. Honey, I think we should have Keyman Insurance for both of us, period.
It starts the dialogue.
It starts the dialogue. The second part of that, yep, it's going to be a little bit harder because what the other person may interpret it as, you want to set this up because you're unhappy.
Yeah.
You want to put these things in place. And that's where you really have to switch hats. Take off the spouse hat, put on the business partner hat, and have a conversation. I would say you're not even having this conversation at the kitchen table or in the living room. You really should have it at the shop in a business environment and say, there are things that are not in writing that we need in writing. It's really important, regardless of the circumstances that we're in today, that we make these decisions when they're not applicable, when there's no emotion involved, because they're not something we're facing today. It becomes a challenge when the emotion is hot and right there in front of you. So I suggest that while you have a great relationship, while you have a great partnership, doesn't have to be spouse, while you're getting along well and the business is doing well, put these things in writing. See a great business lawyer, someone who understands, hey, we're just trying to protect ourselves. We're trying to make sure all our ducks are in a row. That's the time to do this, as opposed to now we're scrambling because we're in a state of panic. We're in a state of emotion. That's when bad decisions get made.
Wow. I see so many different ways this can go. I've known people, they were 60 and they got divorced after 40 some years of marriage.
Right.
And you ask yourself, they couldn't make it the rest of the way, or it built up so much.
Right.
Boom. But to have an operating agreement that outlines what happens when almost is like, there's a hole in the dike. And my God, I would hate to even think that the putty falls out.
Right. Yes.
And if it does, it's easier to have the putty fall out because I have an operating agreement that says what happens. And to me, people that are listening, there's got to be way wide camps. One that says, I get it, I understand, we're tough enough, we can do this. And the others say, we're fragile. And, even though we've been married 30 years, and I would have never thought this in a million years, we're fragile enough that this could not be helpful for us. I mean, I don't think there's any place in the middle.
But if you're fragile enough that this conversation would be that devastating, then I'm sending you to couples counseling right now.
Got it. Because
you have to be willing to have, as business owners, you have to be willing to have these conversations. Again, it's not a baby.
There it is. There it is. It's a business.
It's a
Don't
business
treat
decision.
it like a husband and wife life relationship. You've got to treat it as a business.
Correct.
The marriage, the years of love and family sit here, and the business sits here.
Yes.
And that business needs to have an operating agreement between partners, no matter if they're independent partners or spouses.
Right. And
period.
Any CPA, any accountant would tell you from day one, you do not mix your personal finances, your personal bank accounts, and your business bank accounts for a reason.
Yeah.
I'm just making the same suggestion. That really is a different role that you have together. You happen to be married, but that really is not the issue here. It's you happen to be business partners, and as partners, laying these things out in writing where you are in agreement if you ever need it, and maybe you'll never need it. But if you ever need it, it's already settled. It's not a dispute. It's not something that you have to go around in the circle 14 times and fight about. You've already made the decisions while you're in good standing with one another. And again, I hope you never need it. But my experience was hoping you never need it is not the best idea. I hope I never need life insurance, but I have it.
Yeah.
And I have plenty of it to take care of my adult children if something happens to me in a time frame I'm not expecting. I'm pretty sure my mom did not expect to die at 39 years old.
Yeah. Anything you do over differently?
Anything I would do differently?
Yeah, to come up with this agreement. You should see
I
this
would have the agreement.
Yeah. Getting to the agreement.
Getting to the agreement. It would be something that on the day we put together the corporation papers, it would be included.
And that's the advice you give to everybody.
That's the advice I give to everybody. I would recommend to pay the money to sit down with a business lawyer. It's so easy to go online and to pull up a website that says, we'll incorporate you. And sometimes it might be a great idea. If you're going to be a single operator owner, you're not going to have partners. Most of the time that's going to work really well for you. You don't need to spend the money for a lawyer. But if you're going to be in a partnership, I recommend you find a good business lawyer who will walk through those kinds of questions with you and put together all the documentation that really should be in place for a partnership.
Wow.
Or for more than one owner, regardless of what kind of business entity you plan on being.
Great advice. Thank you for coming here and doing a subject for us that we've never covered before. I like your demeanor. If you were my coach, I would say she comes at me straight and calm and confident, and I should listen to her.
You should listen. Absolutely. I'm going to send this recording to all of my members and say, hey, Carm said you should listen.
Yeah, you should, because what's really cool is with all the different breakouts that I've been here, down here on Amelia Island in Florida, how many times have I heard the coaches up on stage doing a session saying, but you've heard that before, but you've heard that before, but you've heard that before. I know. And that's the funny thing about every business owner in the general session is, who doesn't listen to their coach all the time? Every hand goes up, and what's their regret? What's their biggest mistake? Is that they didn't listen to their coach.
Right.
And they didn't do things, and they weren't held morally accountable, if those are the right words. So this was great. Thanks for being here. Full-time ATI coach, Charlene Parlett. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for being on board to listen and learn from the premier automotive aftermarket podcast. Until next time.